You only need to get 4 things right to start an actually successful online store in 2026. I've been running online stores making a full-time living for 14 years. I have seen a lot of changes over that time. If I started over today from zero, these 4 new steps are the only things I'd focus on in the first 30 days. In this video, we'll go through the steps, and by the end, you'll know exactly how to quickly start an online store that lasts and stands out from the competition. When you're picking what to sell, most people make one of 2 mistakes. They either pick trendy products that blow up for 6 months but then disappear, or they design something they love without thinking about whether anyone will actually buy it. And I get it. When you're a creative person like me, you want to make what excites you, right? But if you're trying to build a business that pays your bills, you need to find the overlap between what you can make consistently and what people will keep buying. So here's the test I would run on any product idea. First, can I make this item repeatedly without burning out? Because it doesn't matter if you can come up with the best product idea in the world, but it takes you way too long to make and you can't charge what you really need to make your time worthwhile. Even if you're having so much fun and you're enjoying the process, your time is the most valuable asset you have because you can't get it back. So you must be paid fairly for that. This is where most people get stuck. They design a product that takes forever to make, costs a fortune in supplies, and then they can't charge enough to make any real profit. The economics have to work, okay? Because you can design the most beautiful product, but if the market won't pay enough for you to profit, you do not have a business. So before you make anything, run the numbers. We'll get into pricing in a minute, but if those numbers don't work together, you need to either find a way to make the product faster, use cheaper materials, or pick a different product entirely. Second, will people keep buying this product, or is it just a fad, right? You want products with staying power, because honestly, it takes a lot of effort to start a business before you ever make a single dollar. You have to make that time worthwhile. If you make a trending product that stops selling in a few months, you're back to square one, needing to build up a business all over again. So think about longevity, not just what's trending on TikTok right now. But here's a question most people skip when it comes to choosing a product to sell. And it is the most important one, especially considering that there is more competition now than ever. And that is, what is your moat? In business terms, a moat is your competitive advantage. It's what stops someone else from just outright copying exactly what you do and then stealing all your customers. What makes someone buy from you instead of some other shop? There are so many people selling stuff online these days. This is crucial. Your moat could be a lot of things. Maybe you have a unique technique that nobody else knows, or if they do, they're not doing it. Maybe you have exclusive access to certain materials or certain intellectual property. Maybe your designs are so distinctive that knockoffs just obviously look fake. But whatever it is, you need something, okay? Because if your product can be replicated easily by anyone with access to the same supplies, you are going to compete on price. And competing on price is a race to the bottom. So when you're thinking about a product, ask yourself, what can I do that's hard for other people to copy? What makes my version different? Why would someone choose me over 100 of other sellers? This doesn't mean you need to invent some revolutionary invention, right? It just means you need some different angle that gives you an edge. Even small advantages will compound over time and it's worthwhile to think about it. So please take your time to think about this. Once you figure out what product you want to make, you run into a completely different problem because even the best product won't sell if people can't remember where they bought it from. So you've got a product people want. Now you need a name they will remember. And this is where a lot of people mess up. They either pick something super generic like handmade jewelry by Sarah, or they try to get too clever and pick something nobody can pronounce or remember. So try not to be too clever or cute or catchy. So what do you do then? Let's talk about what actually works. Research shows that names with 2 to 3 syllables are significantly more memorable than longer names. So keep it short and simple. You don't have to make it 2 or 3 syllables, but the shorter the better. However, simple doesn't mean boring, okay? You want something descriptive enough that people understand what you do, but memorable enough that they can recall it later so they can come back and buy from you again and again, or when their friends ask, wow, that's a really cool product that you have, where did you get it? Your customer can actually say your shop name. Consider my shop name Tiny Hands for my polymer clay jewelry business. It is short, it gives a hint as to what I make, and it's a part of me. I actually have tiny hands. And this is also where your domain name is critical, because when someone tries to find you online, they need to remember where you live on the internet. So the very first thing that I would do is grab a domain name. This is what I do every single time I come up with a new business or a product idea. I go find the domain name for it and I buy it. Normally, I recommend a .com domain name, but you'd have to wrestle and compete with what's available, and most good names are already taken by other people. So instead of a .com domain name, I would go with a .store domain extension, because that's what your business is, right? It is an online store. It immediately tells people you're not just here to look, you're here to buy something. So enter .store domain names. Who is sponsoring today's video? Websites on a .store domain get 87% more traffic and 2 times higher ranking on Google. That's why over 2 million sellers, including artists, creators, and even really big names like Mr. Beast and even Shakira, have .store domain names for their businesses. So if you're serious about turning your passion into profit, head to go.store/ch1 and use my coupon code CreativeHive to grab your .store domain name for only 99 cents for the first year. And here's a bonus. When you get a .store domain, you also get free access to the plus version of Elevate.store, which is basically where you get all of these exclusive discounts and extended free trials to tools to start building your online store. Like you get discounts to Shopify, which is my favorite and top recommended website builder for online stores, to Google Workspace, which is where you get your business email address, LegalZoom for setting up your business legally, ShipStation, I use that for shipping your products, Vistaprint for printing business cards and other marketing materials, QuickBooks for bookkeeping, and so much more. So if you've already got a business name that you love and meets the criteria that I mentioned here, go to go.store/ch1 and use my code CreativeHive to grab your .store domain. Okay, now here's what I see all the time. People name their business after themselves. Especially a lot of fine artists, they do this a lot. And unless you are already famous, this is usually not a great move, in my opinion. I mean, can it work? Of course, some people get lucky with being in the right place, right time, and their personal brand takes off, but that is not a strategy you can rely on because it's not easily repeatable. Most of us aren't going to become household names unless your art style or what you create is so iconic, unique, and in demand that you don't even have to work at spreading the word about it. People are just coming to you effortlessly. It happens, but it is very, very rare these days. So instead, think about what your business actually does. What does it represent? Who are your customers? What interests are you serving? In other words, your niche. Like, what is your shop all about? Is it about gardening or cottage chic? Is it about people who love video games like me? You want to think of words related to what you're focused on. So now you've got a product that works and a name people will remember, but you can price yourself out of your business in about 10 seconds if you make this next mistake. So let's talk about pricing, because this is where I see people completely self-sabotage. Most people think about pricing backwards. They add up all their costs and that's it. That's the price. Or worse, they look at what competitors are charging and then they just price a little bit lower than that because they think that will help them sell more. Here's the thing. People don't buy based on price alone. Yes, it is a huge consideration, but it is not the full picture. People buy based on emotion and perceived value. Studies show that consumers rely heavily on the first piece of information they see when evaluating pricing options. This is called price anchoring. So if someone sees a $100 necklace first, then sees a $50 necklace, that $50 option feels like a deal, right? But if they see a $20 necklace first, now that same $50 necklace feels expensive. So positioning matters more than the actual number itself. And if your product looks amazing, you can of course charge more for it than a product that was amateurly made. Likewise, if you have a good website with great product photos, you can charge more than your counterpart that has a terrible website and blurry and poorly lit photos. Now, here's the formula I use to help you get started. First, take your cost of goods, which is your materials, your supplies, whatever it takes to make your items, add your labor to make the item. So then you want to total all that up. Then multiply that total by 2, and then you want to multiply it by 2 again. That is your retail price. The 2 times that we multiply it by 2 is your markup, which is where your profit comes from. So if you don't mark up, If you don't multiply by 2 twice, or even once, you are not going to make any profit, unfortunately. So if materials cost you, say, $5 and it takes you an hour to make at, say, $20 an hour for labor, your total cost is $25, right? 20 plus 5. You take that times 2, now you have 50, and then you want to times 2 again. That's $100. That's your starting price. But wait, you're probably thinking, no one's going to pay $100 for something that cost me $25 to make. And that's where pricing psychology gets interesting, because value isn't just based on cost. What a person values is different from person to person. Another crafter or maker will see value also in very different things than who actually ends up being your customer, who is someone who probably has no idea how to make what you make. So they're not just buying this product that they can't get at their local Target. They can't make it themselves because they don't know how, they don't have the tools or the training, and they're also buying convenience. They're buying something nice for themselves or their home or for their loved one. And it makes them happy. It makes them feel good feelings. That is all worth something, and it is worth more than just charging for your materials and labor alone. The biggest mistake I see with pricing is people pricing too low because they're scared. They think lower prices means more sales, but what actually happens is you train your customers to expect cheap prices. You make no profit, and then you burn out trying to keep up with orders that don't even pay you fairly. You might even get fewer sales actually because people become suspicious. They'll be like, why is this price so low? Something must be wrong with it. I know I have certainly had that thought, and maybe you have too. I also tested this myself with my own necklace. I had a necklace at $28, and then I raised it to $49.99. And you know what happened? I actually sold more at the higher price. Because I think when people see higher prices, they also assume higher quality. They trust the product more. And that trust is what converts people into buying from you. Of course, I make sure I have a high quality product with great product photos and an easy to use website. So all of that helps me sell at a higher price too. I'm not saying go out and charge more for a product that is not justified to be priced at a higher price point. Okay, don't do that. I think that's unethical and borderline scammy and honestly not okay. But don't be afraid to charge more, okay? Most artists have the problem of charging too little. Start with the formula that I gave you. Your cost times 2, then times 2 again. Then I want you to adjust based on market research and positioning relative to other similar products from already successful shops in the same space as you. Now, pricing only works if you can actually get people to your store. And that's where most people waste months building the wrong thing. So you've got your product, you've got your name, your domain name, your pricing. Now you need to build out the actual store. And this is where people just overcomplicate everything. They spend weeks and months designing the perfect website, constantly tweaking their branding. Here's what you actually need to start selling, okay? Let me just tell it to you once and for all. You just need a way for people to see your products, a way for them to pay you. That is it. You can get this done in less than a week, I promise you. Even in 48 hours if you really, really put your mind to it. So let's focus on the 80-20, okay? The 20% of things that will drive 80% of your sales. And if you need more step-by-step help with this, I have a mini course called Start Your Store Blueprint that you might want to check out. I'll put the link in the description below. So first is your platform, okay? Don't start on Etsy as your main focus. Etsy is so expensive. It takes 6.5% transaction fees on every sale. The amount that you end up paying to Etsy ends up being way more than that at the end of the day. But worse still, you don't own your customer data. You don't own or control your brand experience. You're building on rented land that you don't own. So if Etsy changes their algorithm one day or they decide to shut down your shop, you're going to lose everything and you have no say about it. So instead, I recommend starting with Shopify. Shopify powers over 4.5 million active websites, and you own your store, your customers, your data. When you build on Shopify, you're building equity into your own business. Can you use both? Absolutely. I have students who sell on Etsy and Shopify. I do that. My husband does that with his shop. But your primary focus should always be building your own store on your own domain name, your own website. And then Etsy can be a side channel of extra visibility and potentially passive income. If you do want to go deeper on the Shopify versus Etsy strategy, I have a free workshop that breaks down exactly why I recommend building your own store first and the step-by-step roadmap for how to build a successful business around Shopify. Again, the link is in the description. Now, what do you actually need to start your Shopify store to begin with? You need a homepage. You need your product listings with lots of great clear photos. So really invest in making your photos amazing, okay? That is something you just do once in a couple of afternoons, and it is going to pay you back for years to come. So take your time with that and invest the energy and the learning curve to do that well. And you also need a simple checkout system that doesn't ask the customer to jump through too many hoops. That is the minimum, that is all you need. You do not need a fancy about page right away. You don't need a blog. You don't need that beautiful paid theme that costs hundreds or thousands of dollars to hire a web designer. All you need is a clean, simple Shopify theme. There are free ones that work really well. My husband's shop made his first $1 million on a totally free Shopify theme. Do not feel pressured into paying a lot of money for a expensive theme because you think that's what's going to help you make sales. It's not. So don't spend weeks customizing every single pixel, okay? Just get it functional, get it live, focus on the bare minimum, the 80-20. So simple, clean website with good product photos and easy checkout flow. You are going to learn more from selling one product than from spending months perfecting a website that nobody has seen. So build the minimum version, launch it fast, start telling people about your new store, and hopefully start selling. And then improve based on what you learn. It is an iterative process that ideally you don't do in isolation. Most people start online stores fail within the first year, not because they picked the wrong platform or they had bad marketing, but because they skipped the foundation that we just talked about that is so important. So here's what you should do right now. Pick one product idea, run it through that sustainability test that we talked about. Ask yourself, can I make this consistently? Will people keep buying it? Do the economics work? Because everything else we covered today only matters if you get that first step right. And if you want to see how to market this store once it's set up, how to get traffic without spending a fortune on ads, watch this next video where I break down the strategy that took my business from a few sales a month to consistent 6 figures.